are places on this planet that delight all our senses, but there is one country where wild nature blends so intensely with ancient tribal traditions that many visitors find themselves caught up in a world full of charms and temptations that are difficult to resist. Get ready to learn more about Zambia, one of the most unknown, wild, and fascinating countries on the planet. Wild like the Chisungu, an ancestral ritual that allows men and women to have temporary intimate relationships to strengthen family or tribal alliances. A controversial tradition like Lobola, a reality whereby a man, if he has money or enough cows, can have not one but up to 10 wives. An African country full of hard-to-believe oddities, like a natural pool on the edge of a 100-meter deep abyss known as the Devil's Pool, where every year thousands of tourists risk their lives to get the most extreme photo. Or a secret space program designed by a scientist so eccentric that he sought to send a young woman, accompanied by 2 cats and a missionary, to Mars, no less, before the United States or the Soviet Union did. A nation where the charms go beyond nature, with festivals where a king seems to walk on water in a monumental canoe with an elephant over 5 meters tall, and regions where giant termite mounds reach the size of buildings. Pay attention, and don't miss this video, because discovering Zambia with us will surprise you much more than you can imagine. Let's get started. In the heart of southern Africa, surrounded by vast plains, mighty rivers, and rugged hills, lies Zambia, a nation that, despite its challenges and remote location, boasts a cultural and natural wealth that is unique on the continent. Considered by many to be the wildest country in Africa, Zambia offers landscapes that seem straight out of a dream. Waterfalls that roar with deafening force, rivers that meander through forests and endless plains, and swamps that transform into a mosaic of wildlife, especially during the rainy season. In Zambia, the largest elephants on the planet roam freely across the savannas, while lions stalk at dawn and hippos emerge from the deep waters, reminding any visitor that nature reigns supreme in every corner of this wild territory. But Zambia is not just about wildlife and geography. This country is a mosaic of cultures and ancestral traditions that have survived the passage of time. Communities celebrate festivals such as Kwamboka, where a king appears to walk on water in a monumental canoe with a giant elephant, and regions where termite mounds reach the size of entire buildings. These are realities that we will discover, and that make Zambia a place where the wild and the human intertwine like nowhere else, creating a unique setting that defies the imagination. Zambia is world-renowned for the majestic Victoria Falls, locally called Mosi Oa Tunya, the smoke that thunders, considered one of the 7 most impressive natural wonders of the world, according to UNESCO. But Zambia's beauty is not limited to these waterfalls. Its diverse geography also hides monumental lakes such as Lake Kariba, as well as vast national parks where visitors can embark on unforgettable safaris and observe African wildlife in its natural habitat. Among these animals are the iconic Big Five: the lion, elephant, African buffalo, leopard, and rhino, along with lesser-known species such as the African wild dog. With this in mind, Zambia stands out for offering some of the safest safaris in Africa, thanks to a combination of well-managed parks, expert guides, and strict conservation regulations. In addition, this country is also one of the most economical in Africa, allowing travelers to enjoy a unique experience without compromising the safety or quality of safaris or any other excursions they wish to undertake, which, as you will see, are many. Zambia shares borders with several countries, including Zimbabwe to the south, Mozambique to the east, Tanzania and Malawi to the northeast, the Democratic Republic of Congo to the north, Angola to the west, and Namibia to the southwest. This strategic location in the heart of Africa makes it a meeting point for a large number of cultures and traditions. Some of these communities preserve little explored ancestral rituals and customs, which can be fascinating and even controversial for visitors, offering a unique insight into the country's cultural heritage. With an area of approximately 752,000 square kilometers, Zambia is almost twice the size of Paraguay and comparable in size to countries such as Spain or slightly smaller than Venezuela. Despite its large territory, it is home to a population of around 19 million, resulting in a fairly low population density compared to other African countries. This distribution allows both urban and rural areas to develop freely, flora and fauna to be preserved in all their splendor, and vast regions to remain untouched, forming some of the most impressive landscapes on Earth. Zambia's history is as rich and complex as its nature. This country was inhabited by various ethnic groups and kingdoms long before European colonization, and these roots are still reflected in initiation rituals, ancestral festivals, and unique ceremonies such as the Kuomboka. This is one of Zambia's most iconic festivals, celebrated by the Lozi people to mark the king's annual migration to higher ground when the plains flood. During the ceremony, the Lozi king sails in a monumental canoe approximately 25 meters long, escorted by dozens of rowers who coordinate each movement with precision, while the audience watches in fascination. At the bow of the boat is a giant wooden elephant several meters high, a symbol of power and protection, which in the Lozi language represents strength, wisdom, and leadership. Kuomboka is a spectacle of color, music, and tradition, where the canoe transports the king while embodying the sacred connection between the people, their leader, and the river that gives life to their lands. The name Zambia also has to do with this river that gives life to its lands, as it is derived from the Zambezi River, the fourth longest in Africa, which runs through much of the country and has been fundamental to the life, economy, and culture of the region for centuries. In addition to the river that gives this beautiful country its name, probably the main reason Zambia is famous has a name of its own: Victoria Falls. Although its original name in the local language is Mosioa Tunya, meaning the smoke that thunders, the Scottish explorer David Livingstone, probably the most famous explorer in recent history, decided to name them after Queen Victoria of England when he visited the area in 1855. Today, these falls are known worldwide by that name, although many Zambians and locals continue to claim the original name because of its cultural and natural significance. An interesting detail about Livingstone in this country is that he spent a lot of time interacting with groups that were not native to the area, such as the Kololo tribe, invaders from the south. This relationship influenced how he recorded local names and traditions, leaving a record of the region through a particular prism that mixed indigenous cultures with these invaders. Returning to the impressive Victoria Falls, it is easy to understand why they are considered by many to be one of the most stunning natural wonders on the planet, as they seduce not only with their immensity, but also with their brute force and wild appearance. It is such an indomitable spectacle that the roar of the water can be heard from more than 40 kilometers away. Due to their exceptional geological and scenic value, UNESCO declared them a World Heritage Site. Located on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, Victoria Falls is formed when the majestic Zambezi River plunges over a fault in the earth, creating a curtain of water that stretches over 1,700 meters wide and falls from a height of over 100 meters. They are not the highest or widest waterfalls in the world, but they combine height and width in a unique way, making them the largest waterfall on the planet under this criterion. The mist that rises from the impact of the water is so dense that it gives rise to its name in the Lozi language, which, as we mentioned, is Mosioa Tunya, the smoke that thunders. This mist rises hundreds of meters above the ground and creates a lush microecosystem with permanent vegetation, even during the dry season. In Zambia, nature seems to have a voice of its own, and Mosioa Tunya is an example of this. Many local communities continue to keep alive ancestral beliefs where rivers, trees, and mountains are not only alive, but also possess spirits that must be respected. For some, the column of smoke that rises without fire is a sign of invisible forces that guard the place, integrating the spiritual with the natural in a deep bond between people and their environment. From the Zambian side of Victoria Falls, visitors can access unique and extreme experiences, the most famous being Devil's Pool. This is a kind of pool that forms during the months of August to January, right on the edge of one of the wildest precipices on the planet, when the level of the Zambezi is low enough. This natural pool allows tourists to swim just a few centimeters from the 100-meter drop, offering a pure adrenaline experience for those who dare. To access it, it is mandatory to have expert local guides who know every current and every slippery rock, ensuring that the adventure is extreme but controlled. The tours usually cost between $50 and $100 and are among the most sought after in the country, as many tourists try to take the best photo or video to show the extraordinary danger they are exposed to, an excursion that many consider fair in terms of cost due to the exclusivity of the experience. A reality probably more extreme than swimming in a pool on the edge of one of the highest and most powerful waterfalls on the planet was surely that experienced by those aspiring astronauts in what was probably the most eccentric secret space program in human history, which took place in this country. The Zambia Space Program, or colloquially known as the Afronaut Program. A reality that few know about and now you are going to discover. If you like it, don't forget to leave us a like. Let's get started. It was the year 1964 when an eccentric African scientist decided that Zambia, a newly independent country with very few resources, could challenge the world's great powers in the space race. His name was Edward Makuka Nkoloso, and what he imagined seemed straight out of a science fiction novel. To send the first Zambian woman, accompanied by 2 cats and a missionary, to Mars no less, before the United States or the Soviet Union did. For Nkoloso, his project was not just an impossible experiment. It was, above all, a statement of intent, to show that a young nation could dream big, compete with the giants of the planet, and claim a place in the history of human exploration. Nkoloso's eccentricity did not end with his ambitions. His training methods were as surprising as they were risky. Aspiring astronauts, whom he called Afronauts, were forced to roll downhill in barrels, swing on ropes to simulate weightlessness, or run in improvised suits while trying to maintain their balance as if they were in orbit. Each test seemed like a mixture of homemade ingenuity, madness, and pure daring, designed to toughen the body and mind in the face of the unknown. In those early years, Nkoloso even had the symbolic support of the new Zambian government. With that small amount of help, he was able to organize training sessions and gather materials to build his first experimental rockets. These rockets were rudimentary, but some managed to reach the lower stratosphere, surprising those who thought it was all a hoax carried out by a mad African scientist. At times, it seemed that perhaps this crazy dream could have some basis in reality. However, cracks soon began to appear. The rockets were unstable, funding was virtually non-existent, and the training was too dangerous for those they called Afronauts. As the months passed, the international scientific community never took it seriously, and the program became increasingly isolated, relegated to the category of eccentric curiosity. But what never waned was Nkoloso's imagination, or his desire to explore beyond the known. One of the most striking curiosities is that Nkoloso kept a detailed record of every attempt, every failure, and every new idea. He even designed a handmade spacecraft using local materials, hoping to put his crew into orbit before making the leap to Mars. Although that ship never took off with humans on board, some of his experiments showed that behind the madness there was a genuine foundation of technical ingenuity. At one point, Nkoloso dreamed of an African space mission funded by the continent itself, without relying on the United States or the Soviet Union. A project that, had it materialized, would have marked a historic and symbolic milestone. Despite its failures, the so-called National Academy of Science, Space Research, and Philosophy remained a symbol of creativity and audacity in this country. His rockets never took anyone to Mars, but the mere fact of imagining it made the program an unforgettable example of boundless ambition and impossible dreams. Today, more than half a century later, the figure of Edward Makuka Nkoloso continues to fascinate historians, curious minds, and lovers of the unusual. His story combines science, madness, humor, and hope, reminding us that the human imagination has no boundaries. And if this story has surprised you as much as it has us, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to Uncensored World, so you don't miss out on unique stories that, as you can see, will help you discover the world like nowhere else. But Zambia is not just extreme nature or eccentric curiosities. It is also a country with deeply rooted traditions. One of the best known is the Lobola, or bride price, which consists of the delivery of compensation, originally cattle, by the man and his family to the family of the woman he wishes to take as his wife. This ritual not only represents a gesture of respect, but also functions as a social and economic pact between clans, reaffirming the importance of family and community alliances. Although it can now also be paid in money, cows remain the main symbol of this ancestral tradition. The origin of Lobola dates back to a time when African societies were organized around clans, and wealth was not measured in banknotes or modern property, but in the possession of cattle. Cows were considered the basis of subsistence. They provided milk, meat, leather, and labor. Having many cows not only guaranteed food, but also prestige and power. Thus, offering cows as a dowry was not only a material exchange, but a way of demonstrating economic capacity and commitment to the new union. In Zambia, Lobola not only unites couples, but also two entire families. This ancestral agreement strengthens the family and social network, generating trust and ensuring the continuity of community ties. For the bride's parents, receiving cattle historically meant obtaining resources with which to feed the family or exchange for other necessities, especially in contexts of scarcity and hunger. Marriage, in this sense, became a social and economic contract that benefited both parties. A striking curiosity is that there are men in Zambia who, according to reports, have had more than 10 wives. This is only possible if they own large tracts of land and, above all, enough cattle to pay the Lobola for each marriage. In these communities, polygamy not only reflects a personal desire, but is also a symbol of power, prestige, and livelihood. In addition, the more women and cows a man has, the higher his social status and the greater his influence within the community. The power of cows in Zambia, and in much of Africa, is particularly striking when contrasted with the food shortages suffered by many regions, but it is also closely related to this. Where hunger strikes, cows are seen as the most valuable treasure. They represent long-term security, capital that is passed down from generation to generation, and a guarantee against crises. Therefore, even though they could be consumed to alleviate immediate hunger, they are often kept alive because they signify survival, wealth, and social respect. As you can see, in this country where the force of the rivers and the majesty of its waterfalls coexist with ancient rituals, nature and culture are spectacularly intertwined, leaving every visitor with a sense of awe and respect for the grandeur of the natural world and the human traditions that inhabit it. Of these traditions, the one that probably generates the most controversy, even more than Lobola and the possibility of having more than 10 wives, is that of Chisungu, a ritual that allows men and women to have temporary intimate relationships with the intention of strengthening family or tribal alliances. At first glance, it may sound strange, but in the cultural context of Zambia, this ritual is understood as a mechanism to ensure that the bonds between clans remain strong. Chisungu is practiced in communities where group unity is considered more important than individual interests. That is why these intimate relationships are not considered a private or sentimental matter, but rather a social resource for practical purposes. Establishing these types of bonds originally meant strengthening trust, opening paths for cooperation, and in many cases, avoiding conflicts between families or neighboring villages. One of the most striking curiosities is that since this tradition began, Chisungu was not seen as a transgression, but as a ceremonial act. These unions were temporary and clearly defined within the cultural framework, so they did not generate jealousy or breakups in permanent marital relationships. On the contrary, they could be a source of prestige and recognition, as they demonstrated a person's ability to contribute to the well-being of their community through closer alliances. Such practices, which are highly controversial for most of us, are not so controversial in other societies, such as among some Inuit groups in the Arctic. Among them, the ancient practice of sharing a partner as a gesture of hospitality is documented, whereby a visitor was offered the opportunity to become intimate with the spouse of the couple. For them, these practices were not seen as betrayal, but as an act of trust and respect, which also served to strengthen ties in communities where cooperation was essential for survival in such a hostile environment. Similarly, among the Himba of Namibia, a semi-nomadic desert people, there is a custom known as Okujepisa Omukazendu. This consists of a man, as a sign of friendship or trust towards a close guest, temporarily offering the company of his wife. In this context, the gesture not only strengthens the relationship between the men involved, but is also a way of demonstrating generosity, openness, and prestige within the community. As you can see, although Chisungu has its own symbolic and ceremonial framework within Zambia, traditions with certain similarities can be found in places as far apart as Alaska and Namibia. In all cases, what may seem strange or controversial to outsiders actually responds to an internal logic of alliance, cohesion, and community survival in extreme environments, where intimacy ceases to be solely private and becomes a tool for ensuring the harmony and continuity of the group. At this point, we would like to ask you, how many cows would you be willing to offer for a woman? Or how many do you think you are worth? In your case, do you think you could live with 10 wives or maintain temporary relationships to help strengthen community ties? Pause the video and leave us your comment. You know that doing so is the best way to support Uncensored World so that we can continue working to bring you interesting content like this every week, so thank you. In addition to the reasons you have learned about, Chisungu also has a strong symbolic and pedagogical component. In many cases, this ritual was linked to initiation ceremonies, where young people learned not only about adult life, but also about the role they would play in the cohesion of the group. Through these encounters, values such as generosity, loyalty, and responsibility towards the clan were transmitted. In this way, intimacy was not reduced to the physical aspect but acquired a spiritual and social value. The most curious thing is that, contrary to what one might think from an outside perspective, these practices were not related to debauchery or a lack of rules. On the contrary, Chisungu was regulated by a set of strict rules and was only performed at specific times and places, usually accompanied by songs, dances, or symbols that reinforced its ritual nature. It was, in essence, a way of transforming intimacy into a tool for social peace and community balance. Today, although Chisungu remains alive in some rural areas of Zambia, its practice has greatly diminished due to the influence of modernity, religion, and social transformations. But it remains a fascinating example of how human communities have found, throughout history, surprising ways to unite families and ensure the stability of their world, something more common in societies living in such extreme environments. Environments so extreme that they make it possible for anthills as large as entire buildings to exist. In Zambia, especially in the savannas of the south and center of the country, there are giant termite mounds that can reach heights of 10 meters and even more. These colossi of earth and clay look like natural towers rising from the ground, as if they were human constructions. But in reality, they are the result of centuries of collective work by millions of tiny workers. Zambia's giant termite mounds are not only an impressive visual spectacle, they serve essential functions for the ecosystem. They act as natural ventilation centers, regulating the temperature and humidity inside, which allows termites to survive even in extremely hot and dry climates. In addition, these structures promote soil aeration, facilitating water filtration, and the growth of vegetation around them. A striking curiosity is that some of the largest termite mounds can be so dense and resistant that they even survive floods or fires. Their internal construction is carefully organized into chambers and tunnels with cross ventilation, which maintain stable conditions for the colony throughout the year. Scientists study these systems for inspiration in sustainable human architecture and natural climate control. For example, the Eastgate Center building in Harare, Zimbabwe, uses a ventilation system inspired by these termite mounds to maintain stable temperatures without the need for traditional air conditioning. This building, designed by architect Mick Pierce, saves up to 95% of energy in climate control thanks to passive ventilation. In addition, other modern constructions use similar techniques of natural air circulation, thermal insulation, and adaptive structures based on the study of these termite mounds, especially in buildings that seek energy efficiency in hot and humid climates. Termite builders do not work randomly. Their efforts are the result of a highly organized social hierarchy that will surely surprise you. Termite colonies are made up of workers, soldiers, and the reproductive pair, each group with clear functions. The workers are responsible for building and maintaining the tunnels and chambers, the soldiers defend the colony, and the reproducers ensure the survival of the species. The workers transport soil mixed with saliva and plant matter, precisely molding the walls and ceilings of these enormous termite mounds. This collective work has a vital purpose: to protect the colony from predators and extreme environmental conditions, while ensuring ventilation and temperature control for the eggs and larvae. In this way, as you can understand, each termite mound is a perfect biological machine, built with natural materials but with engineering that rivals the best human designs. Another surprising fact is that not only do termites protect themselves here, but these giant termite mounds also serve as a refuge for other species. Birds, reptiles, and even small mammals use these structures to nest or hide from predators. In some cases, small foxes, mongooses, and even snakes have been observed taking advantage of the interior chambers to raise their young. Interestingly, some Zambian tribes and communities take advantage of these termite mounds because they know that animals they can hunt may be hiding there, a reality that is sure to surprise more than a few people if they see someone entering one of these cavities to throw out huge snakes or wild animals. The presence of these enormous anthills can be explained by several factors. Zambia has clay soil suitable for building, sufficient vegetation to feed the colonies, and a climate that allows for constant termite activity. The colonies work day and night, adding mud and plant matter, repairing damage, and expanding the structure, allowing them to grow for decades until they reach monumental proportions. Discovering Zambia and being lucky enough to walk near these natural giants is like being on another planet or in a past world frozen in time. A landscape so amazing that it has inspired local legends and myths about forest spirits or magical creatures living inside. A reminder that, in Zambia, nature takes forms that surprise and fascinate, challenging our imagination about what is possible in the natural world. If you've made it this far, you're probably interested in finding out how you can visit this wild and amazing country. That's why we at Uncensored World have done some thorough research so that you can enjoy it to the fullest or fuel your desire to visit it one day. Zambia is one of the safest countries in Africa, and also one of the cheapest in the world to travel to. According to the 2025 Global Peace Index, it ranks 5th in Africa and 57th worldwide in terms of safety, which means it is safer than countries such as Italy, Mexico, India, or the United States, offering travelers a peaceful experience even on a continent known for certain security challenges. In terms of cost of living, Zambia is among the most economical countries in Africa, allowing travelers to enjoy unique experiences without spending a fortune. Getting to Zambia is relatively easy. From the Americas, U.S. citizens do not require a visa for short stays. They only need a passport valid for at least 6 months with 3 blank pages. From Europe, most European Union citizens also do not need a visa, although it is advisable to check the specific requirements for each country. For those who do require a visa, a single entry visa costs $25. Getting around the country is easy and inexpensive. You can rent a car in cities such as Lusaka, Ndola, Kitwe, or Livingston, or use buses and minibuses that connect the main cities and national parks. Among the places you can't miss are Victoria Falls, one of the world's most impressive natural wonders, giant termite mounds, and villages of various tribes, which will allow you to learn about more than 70 local cultures with unique and fascinating traditions. Zambia is also known for offering some of the safest and most affordable safaris in Africa. Safari prices start at around $300 per person per day. The most notable parks include South Luangwa, Lower Zambezi, and Kafue, where you can see elephants, lions, zebras, and many other species in their natural habitat. In terms of the cost of living, a double room in a mid-range hotel can cost between $20 and $30 per night, and a meal for two in a local restaurant ranges from $10 to $20. To make the most of your trip, it is important to remember that the official currency is the Zambian kwacha, that English is the official language, and that vaccinations such as yellow fever and precautions against malaria are recommended. At Uncensored World, we hope you found this video as interesting as we did, and that it helped you discover Zambia, one of the wildest and least known gems on the planet. If so, don't hesitate to leave us a like and a comment. It's the best way to help us continue working to bring you interesting content like this every week, or like this video you can watch now, to discover another of the most mysterious and beautiful places on the planet. Click on it. You're going to enjoy it.